For this math journal page, you're going to dedicate 2 pages for this math journal today. We're going to talk about angle relationships and parallel lines and transversal lines. So our central question for today is, how are angle relationships formed using parallel lines and a transversal? So on the left-hand side, I'm going to write my essential question. How are angle relationships formed using parallel lines and a transversal? Many of you are very familiar with some of the keywords or the vocabulary words that we'll be using today, and they are adjacent angles, supplementary angles, vertical angles. So I'm going to put these down at the bottom because we're going to talk about these on the other side of the page. Corresponding angles. Alternate angles. By alternate angles, we're going to talk about alternate interior angles, which are the inside angles, alternate exterior angles. So we're going to talk about those as well. And a few others that we'll mention as we go on. On the other side of the page, on the right-hand side, what I'd like for you to do with that page is you're going to take it and you're going to fold it vertically. And I'm going to fold it so that there is a crease there. Then I'm going to take and make 2 more creases, so just pay attention to exactly what I'm doing here. As you can see, there is a margin. We're going to call this our, when you open up the page, we're going to call this our left-hand side of the margin. So I'm going to make a crease there, so it'll be easy to reference to. So just take that page, follow the red vertical line, and carefully just make a crease there. Open that back up. And then I'm going to do the same thing to this back margin. We'll call that our right-hand margin. That's the one that looks faint from the other side, from the front side of the page. We clearly can see that it's a red margin, vertical margin, when we flip it over. So just carefully make that a crease too. And the only reason we're making these 2 indentions is just so we can make an easy reference when it comes to building our parallel lines. Then you're going to take your ruler and you're going to form a line, or draw a vertical line just down that middle crease there. So carefully along that middle crease. And of course I'm just going to erase where I just made the slight error here. This page is going to be called, this line, excuse me, is going to be called our transversal line. Transversal. That's T-R-A-N-S-V-E-R-S-A-L. Line. Next, we're going to draw our parallel lines. So beginning on the left-hand side of the transversal line, on the left-hand margin, we're going to start here at the top, and we're going to count down our horizontal lines, the blue line. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. On the 6th line, we're going to mark it with a point, and we're going to label it point A. Then we're going to move to our right across the transversal line all the way to our right hand crease or margin. I'm just going to make a point of reference here just to begin with so you can see where you are. Then you're going to come down 6 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we're going to make our actual mark here. And we're going to call this point, point B. Again, that reference point, I'm going to go ahead and erase that one because I won't no longer need that one. Then I'm going to draw my line from point A to point B. So now I have line segment AB. Then I'm going to use as a reference point, point B. I'm going to come across left, across the transversal line, all the way again to the margin on the left-hand side. And I'm going to count again 6 down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to make my next point here, and I'm going to label this point C. From point C, I'm going to come across to the right, across my transversal line, all the way to my right-hand margin. From here, I'm going to count down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Mark this point, and I'm going to label it point D. Then I'm going to take my ruler again, and I'm going to connect these 2 points, C and D, to create line segment CD. Then somewhere over in the margin, on the right-hand side, I'm just going to label these. I have line segment AB, I have line segment CD, and I'm going to indicate that they are parallel lines by using this symbol here. So now I have created a transversal line that intersects with my 2 parallel lines, AB, CD. From here, I actually formed 8 angles. So now I'm going to label these angles. And I'm going to label them going vertically in order 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So I have a total of 8 angles. Now I'm going to talk about the relationship between these different 8 angles. Some of these angles will be congruent, and others of these angles will form a straight line or 180 degrees, which are called supplementary angles. So the first ones I want to talk about are our vertical angles. These are the angles that are opposite of one another. 1, 6, 2, 5, angles 3, 8, angles 4, 7. Are all vertical lines, and they are congruent to one another. So let's look at these. By congruent, I mean that they have the equal or the same degree when it comes to the angles. So this first one I'm going to title as my vertical angles. Again, vertical angles are angles that are opposite of one another. Vertical angles. So let's label them again. Angle 1, this is an angle sign. This is not the less than, the greater than sign. And I'm going to say angle 1 is equal to angle 6. And I'm going to note this by drawing a congruent angle sign. Angles 2 and angle 5. I'm going to draw this again using 2 different angle signs. This time I'm going to draw it using 2 arc signs to indicate that 2 and 5 are different from 1 and 6. By different, I mean they are not the same. They are not equal to, they are not congruent. I'm going to do the same thing for my relationships with the bottom angles. So again, vertical angles 3 and angle 8 are congruent, and they are considered vertical angles. So they are congruent or equal to one another. And I'm going to do the same for angles 4 and angle 7. Now I am intentionally making these angle indications that are congruent to one another in both sets of angles. So angle 4 is equal to or congruent to angle 7. The measurements of the angles are equal. And I'm just going to put congruent here, just so we can remember that they are equal to one another. Then I want to talk about corresponding angles. Corresponding angles would be when I look at my first set of 4 angles and my last set or my second set of angles. Look at the position as to where these angles are of one another. These represent that they are congruent as well. So angle 1 and angle 3 are also congruent, and they are called corresponding angles. They're in the same location as one another. And let's make a list of those as well. So angle 1 is congruent to angle 3. And I've already noted that. Then you have angle 2 is congruent to angle 4. They are in the same position. You also have angle 5 is congruent to angle 7. And angle 6 is equal to or congruent to angle 8 because they are in the same location. So here again we have corresponding angles. They are also congruent of one another. So these pairs are congruent or equal to. We also have some more pairs of angles that are congruent to one another. For these, I want us to make sure we understand that interior means the inside, exterior is the outer side or the outside. So what I'm going to do with angles point C and A, I'm going to just draw like a dotted line. What I'm doing is I'm not really forming an actual line. I want to just form like an imaginary line here. And I want to do the same for points B to point D. I'm drawing a dotted line just as an imaginary line so that we can see the angles that are located in the inside of what we've created, this actual parallelogram, quadrilateral, ABCD or ABDC. I want us to look at the angles 2, 6, 3, and 7. And look to see which angles are actually congruent of one another. These angles are congruent and they actually have a name. These are called alternate or opposite interior angles. They're opposite of one another and they are in the inside portion of the angles that are formed by the parallel lines and the transversal line. So we're going to call these alternate interior, meaning inside, angles. The ones that are congruent or equal to one another. Angle 2 and 7. So I'm going to write angle 2 is equal to angle 7. And angle 3 is congruent to angle 6. So here we're talking about the relationship of our different angles that are formed. And we noted which ones are actually congruent or equal to in value when it comes to the angles, the measurement of the angles. Then I'd like to talk about the exterior. The exterior are the ones that are on the outside. So I'm going to place those here at the